another episode of Conversations with Cupid. I am your hostess, Marla Martenson, and today I'm talking with Victor Sirgado. Victor Sirgado.
Very Spanish name, yeah.
Very Spanish. And isn't he handsome, you guys? I know, but he's taken, ladies, okay? So I'm super excited about this interview because he is doing something that a lot of people could only dream about. He and his family departed from their home in California, setting off on a quest for adventure in pursuit of their own dreams. Their first year traveling nomadically yet strategically trace North America and see new experiences and new places, climates, and cultures. This whole family is in a Gulf Stream or
it's an Airstream, yeah. We're in a 27-foot Airstream.
So tell us about this. Tell us about this journey and what you're doing, because this is so exciting. I mean, I wish I could travel the world, just put everything in storage or sell it and just go. But you did it.
Well, I think the reality of it is that if we envision it, then it's a matter of execution, right? And realizing my own mortality and how life is but a glimpse. I was fortunate enough to get my company on autopilot about 2 years ago, and I just started rethinking these ideas of success and what makes me happy, right? And was it the material things that I surrounded myself around, or this beautiful community that I'm around? And I'm very fortunate, very blessed to have those things, the people around me and the things that I have. But for this nomadic soul, I just felt like I needed to see more and do more. And as a father with a 7 and a 3-year-old, I started realizing that, the best experience that came to me was via travel and experiencing new things and having these adventures. So we got in our head to basically start asking those questions. Why do we live in this big house? Why do we buy these nice cars, the clothes we wear, and just kind of, the typical human questions. Why do we do anything? So it just became apparent to us that the best thing for us to feel alive was to get out there and basically take our lives, do an audit of everything that we have and who we are and what we do and who we hang out with, the entire process of living, and said, well, let's take this risk. And let's go out there and let's take our family out there. And we officially became a private school to the U.S. government about 6 months ago. So we started homeschooling, which has now become road schooling to our second grader, which is, fairly easy. You're intimidated by this experience at first, but once you get in the process and you stay organized, you realize it's really easy. It's just a matter of execution, right, with everything else in life. So we took the house, we either sold, gave away, or stored the things that we knew when we came back, if we came back, that we opened up, we truly loved. Mm-hmm. And we said, let's do this. So we purchased a 27-foot Airstream, bought a truck, never owned a truck before, didn't know anything about RVs or RV life. And luckily we were exposed to a community that was, had been doing this for several years with families. So we were able to download their information, and that's how we basically got started, wanting to be outside, wanting to raise our kids kind of like we did. We were always outside. We're part of that generation that was before the internet, right? A lot of us were always outside. That's how we grew up. We established a lot of our relationships via sports or climbing up trees. These days we're competing as parents with technology. So it was about how much time our kids spend on technology. So with that said, we thought that the best idea was to get them around Mother Nature as much as possible. And I know that some of the things that I find balance in my life were being outside, surfing, for example. I love to surf. I love to mountain bike. So you know what? It's the perfect time to get my son into this Airstream and just go down the coast and teach him how to surf. So we've been doing that and documenting the whole experience. So it's educating people along the way about what it is we do and how we do it, hopefully aspire folks to be able to do something like this as well. So in this process, I got it in my head that I would download wisdom and knowledge from people that I find along the way. And at the end of the day, I would be able to share this with everybody. But most importantly, I would be able to share this with my family as time goes on. The 20, 30, 40 years that are going to happen, and as you know, they're going to happen really fast. So at the end of the day, what is legacy? The legacy that we leave behind. So I am documenting this experience, and hopefully in ways that will inspire people to know that they too can live outside the box. But what is that term anyway? I mean, there's no box to think outside of.
Well, that
right? So
box, I mean, the box is what everybody thinks how they think we have to live. I mean, I know people who are going to a job they hate. By the time they leave their house and come back, it's 12 hours or 10 hours, and then working hard all week, and then they have to say, "Thank God it's Friday," and then they clean their house on Saturday, do some errands. Sunday they do a few things. They got to do it all over again, and this is going on for 40 years, and I just think it's such a shame.
yeah, because we are born into a social construct that is an algorithm, and this algorithm usually dictates, as consumers, okay, let's get up, let's go to work, or let's start before that, let's live in the suburbs, or not. Let's get out there and meet people in the white picket fence, and I do the high school, I get married, and I go to college, I find a job, hopefully that's great, I marry somebody, and there goes the next 30, 40 years. That's fine, and that's great, and that's the reality we were living in before, and we may fall back into that, but we needed to give ourselves the opportunity to change the lens of our lives and look at it differently, to be able to grow in ways that we weren't growing with the standard algorithm that we were experiencing every day.
Yeah, well, and then to even speak to that, I have friends or family members that I see once a year because they're so busy working, knocking their head against the wall to work at a job that doesn't even give them joy. And there's no time for the things like you are getting to spend all this quality time with your family. and
Sure, yeah.
and your kids are actually what other kids read about in books. They get to see in person, and there's no you cannot replace that. I mean, that is just
I,
so incredible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, as a new father going through the educational process, right, and putting our son in a private school and then putting him in a public school and seeing what the educational system in our country, good or bad, why it is the way that it is, we just felt like we needed to take control of that and handle that, at least for now, for ourselves. And now we're very fortunate that both Christine and I developed an amazing work ethic, and we developed our agency, and we developed the resources to be able to do something like this. And so it's something along the way that we are the kind of people, maybe because we were nomadic before, we've traveled to many cities and countries and had opportunities to meet so many people from many different walks of life, that we just maybe weren't ready to settle yet. As good as we had it, we wanted to live a little bit more. So that's how we fall into that. How people do this, I mean, I think that there's a level of risk that we all have to take, and you have to really just kind of question your own mortality and think, is my everyday great? Do I really love what I do? Do I love the crew and the family and the people that I'm around on an everyday? Am I fulfilled? Can I keep that but also look at life differently and expose myself to something that I may not know anything about, but this is how we grow. And so we're living proof that you can't be happy and you can't do this. It's not that difficult.
Right, and you make a good point that you started a business that made you some good money, and then you were able to fund this lifestyle now, and just the whole thing about the consumer nation, the culture of consumerism, just making everything simple in your life, not buying every shiny object so that you could pile more money in the bank to then fund the lifestyle you want, is something maybe people should take a look at, because how many things can you buy, knickknacks or pieces of furniture stuff? What is more important to you? Things that you'll be able to do because you have that freedom with the money, or you can live in a prison in a beautiful house, but you're tied down because you have so many payments.
Right. I mean, it really is interesting how when we first got this Airstream and we started traveling, and let's say we were in the desert for 3, 4 weeks, and the kids got used to being outside all the time. It's amazing how you could give a kid a shovel, and they will go out and dig holes and dig ramps and use their imagination, and happy as can be. But then when we came back to our regular quote-unquote lives and were in the house, they couldn't really use their imagination the way they were outside, so they just quickly ran to the iPad or the television. Right. And it's very easy to just kind of fall into this situation where mom's in one room watching television, dad's in the other in the office and the computer doing his thing, one kid's on that side of the house, and you're not really together. So I wanted to force the issue of us being together and learning how to operate as a family, and my kids as brothers growing up together, rather than throwing them out there in reality and kind of hoping for the best and expecting the worst, right? We all have to deal with realities. It's not a perfect world. And we hold responsibility to the time that we live in. We realize that it's not a utopic experience. I buy into that. But at this stage of the game, right, in my mid-40s, I want to spend the rest of my life with the kind of people that make me feel the way that I want to feel. So I am finding those individuals, and I'm teaching my kids along the way the good and the bad about humanity through emotional maturity, through educational. So we have an educational campaign that we're executing for our kids. And are we going to come back at the end of the year? We don't know. We don't know if we're going to come back at the end of next year. We could tell you that we really love this. It's great. One of the best parts of this experience so far has been the great people from all over the world that we've been able to get exposed to and downloading them to us.
Yeah, you guys, Victor came over to our house the other day and interviewed me for his podcast, so that was great to have him here and meet him, and my husband got to meet him, and that was exciting. Yeah. So tell us some of the places that you're going to be hitting soon, the places you're going to stop.
Right, so right now we're in Malibu Beach in California right here.
And it's Friday the 13th right now, you guys, when we're doing this. Woohoo!
Yeah, so I'm on a mission to teach my oldest, my 7-year-old, how to surf.
Okay.
Right, so what we're doing is tic-tacking our way down the California coast. We started in the Bay Area, so we do Central Park, state parks. They earn their ranger badges, so everywhere we go, they have to learn about the area and earn a badge. And then when we head into the coast and we start looking for beaches that we could, basically, we love the ocean. We're ocean babies, so teaching them how to surf. So the next move from here, we're going to start heading towards San Diego. And then we're going to head back towards the Vegas area and do the Hoover Dam and shoot up to Utah and just basically take a look at that part of the country and ultimately head our way up to Alaska. After we get done with Alaska and start heading down towards Washington and Portland, we may very well shoot over across Canada and do Nova Scotia. And after Nova Scotia, hit down to Key West, and that already puts us into 2017. And a lot of this is, yes, you have to be planned. You have to have a system. Right. But what I can tell you from our experiences, no matter how planned we are, we're kind of like butterflies hovering over that plan because we meet people, we interact with places that transform us. And the transformation of travel is what we are experiencing. So I can tell you that we're going to be in Southern California, down maybe like in San Diego next week. But you know what? The waves are great here, and we've met some amazing people. The kids are having fun, so we have the luxury of staying.
Yeah, it's just so wonderful. You are really just creating your own life. I mean, and what I love about, I talk about this a lot, about being your own boss even, and taking that risk. If you're not that happy, I mean, I didn't become my own boss till I was in my late 40s, and I can't tell you how freeing it was to know that I didn't have to get up when I was still tired. Like, I didn't have to get up at 8 o'clock or 7 a.m. I could get up anytime I want. I'll just work later, or I can make my own schedule. I can go to a doctor's appointment if I want without having to ask. Just the freedom and the power that it gives you to kind of call your own shots and pull your own strings. And I just highly recommend people to, if they can do it, do whatever you can to give it a shot. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never too late. I mean, I never imagined that I would even be my own boss. So, I mean, it's just you're even have more freedom than I do, but just getting that much freedom, it just changed my life so much.
I agree. And true happiness comes with leading from the heart. And often we let the mind get in the way, the ego, right? And what I should be doing and who I should be with and what I should look like. And, it's just where life comes at us so fast and how we react to that and these messages. So it's hard to sit there sometimes and ponder. And I say to some people, well, maybe pause, meditate. Well, meditation is a word that's not really inclusive throughout the U.S., maybe so much so now in California, maybe some other pockets. But if you really stop and think about your own mortality and how much life you have, right? Maybe you have another 50 years, maybe you have another 20 years, but really having the opportunity to think, who do I love and who loves me? And you lead your actions with love, right? With this idea that it's going to come from a good place. I'm always going to come from the heart. So one day when I'm 90, plus whatever. Hopefully I get to that point and I look back at this 40-something-year-old guy. I am proud of my decisions. Whether I failed or I didn't, I came from the heart. So you have to have a level of risk, and risk comes also, what you're going to get out of that is a sense of adventure that's going to come in your life. So stay organized, right? And that's, if you kind of stay organized, manage your finances, make sure that you stay in a level of communication with those around you, that you get the support that you need to. And there's so much information online. There's so many people that you could tap into to do something like this. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, how do you want to live your life? This is one life. How do you want to live it? So I've never been one that's let barriers get in the way. If something gets in my way, I either have to study hard or work hard or learn in some way, shape, or form to get over those obstacles, so I can give myself the options to understand, how can I live this life enriched the way exactly that I want to live. Now, I realize that I'm only one person and I can't do this on my own. I have a beautiful wife that helps me. I have great friends that support me. There's a huge network out there. The employees that I've worked with that have been fortunate enough to help me out with my company have gotten me to this point. But I always think about positioning. And I always think about the two things that I tell my son. And ultimately, I think one thing that will stick with them is that live righteously, treat people with respect righteously, and have a sickening work ethic. That's it. I mean, this is normal, and Dad's way up here, and I did that enough times.
A sickening work ethic. What do you mean by that?
So I think that the average Joe will pump into a system and say, okay, from 9 to 5, and this is what I got to do, and I got to work really hard, and after 5 o'clock, I'm going to come home, I'm going to be with my family, I'm going to turn on the tube, I'm going to pass out, and here I am, I'm going to do it again, and this is going to be throughout the years, and I've got my 2 to 3 weeks of vacation, and next thing you know, 10, 20 years pass by. For me, I realized that in order to capture the kind of success that I had, I really needed to educate myself on the components that make my agency run, whether I needed to learn all aspects of graphic design, whether I needed to learn to produce video, whether I needed to become a writer. I got a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Florida. I learned how to produce video like professionals. I learned how to do graphic design. I learned a lot of the skill sets that you hire people to basically run an agency. I did it myself, and I was very lucky to execute that and find success.
And you know what, I just have to bring this up, because the great thing about your kids, you mentioned, how falling into a certain mindset of how we're supposed to look or be. And in school, kids are so cruel. I was bullied as a kid and called names, and I was like one of 2 redheads in the whole school. So back then it was all white kids, but if you're different with another hair color, they beat you up. So you couldn't win. I mean, they'll always find something different about people, and your kids are not going to have that. They'll have a better self-esteem because they will not be in that environment where they're seeing people picked on, or maybe them being picked on for whatever reason. They can have a good sense of self and self-esteem from not being in that, I think, environment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we noticed it transferring him from one school to the next, and when we landed in the second school, we had some issues with some kids, and it came down to my son being an extrovert, and he attracts a lot of attention. So one of the kids got really jealous and started bullying him, and I had to go through that process, which is kind of nerve-wracking when you have to talk to teachers and principals and parents about this kind of situation. But at the end of the day, what I told my son is that he is privileged. He has the emotional maturity to understand why kids are acting like this. So he doesn't have to hit back, or he doesn't have to bully back. No matter how hard you try as a parent, no matter how much love you give him, or how much wisdom or knowledge you give him, you're exposing him into a world with other kids. And the reality of it is not every parent's going to see life the way you see it. So they're going to pick up things and characteristics that you don't like. So at the end of the day, it's about dealing with that and understanding that. So, at the end of the day, it's about realizing that you have to be inclusive. You have to have empathy, and you have to have compassion for those kind of situations. I think that one of the best things that's come out of this as well is, I'll give you an example. Last week we were at a campfire, and it was maybe 9 o'clock at night, and I was with my son, and there was maybe 10 adults. And I could just watching him being mindful of how he communicated to these adults and how they communicated back to him, I realized, man, that the emotional maturity he's gained from just being around adults, other age groups.
Right.
It's not He's not getting up every single day with the 7-year-olds and doing the same thing. He's got the full, the full color palette,
Right.
every age group. So I think that is very beneficial to us, and it's helped out. Now, again, there's no perfect system.
Right.
So it's a
Well,
matter of
when you
understanding.
when you and I were kids, or at least I'm older than you. When I was a kid, you could, you could go and beat somebody up. You could punch them in the face, if they're bugging you, or you could get spanked, or don't act like that. Now you can't. It's just you could end up in prison or on the internet or on the news, or it's just such a different dynamic now. You can't, your dad might say, "Hey, that kid's bugging you. Go beat him up, and he'll teach him a lesson." They won't do it again, and it's just so different now. I don't have kids, so I'm glad I don't have to deal with it.
You definitely have to tiptoe around social
Right.
norms, and what people consider to be right or wrong. I guess the way we do it in my house is always understanding and talk about being emotionally mature and what does that mean. I mean, it wasn't like, for example, getting my son to buy into going from leaving his friends, leaving soccer games, his teammates, and leaving his house to jumping into an Airstream. It took some time to get him to that, and it had a lot to do with emotional maturity. Massimo, are you emotionally mature to deal with this kind of situation? And ultimately, after surrounding him around other children that are doing this, he bought into it, and it's just they've embraced it. They are so happy. What the national average of education that kids get per day? So they go to school 7, 8 hours a day. They get 1 hour of academia. That's the national average, right? So that's not acceptable. So to me, in my house, we make sure that we do 4 hours a day, sometimes 3 hours a day, and we cover the assignments that most kids do as well. But we do it under our terms and our speed. But we also, like you say, bring the book to life, and we try to surround them around that in hopes that they're living out here, living outside, it's big, small space, but big backyards, that they are gaining wisdom from the experience, and that will transcend later in life for them.
That's so exciting. And now tell us about your podcast that you're
So
launching.
yeah, right. So the podcast, the way I see it, so it's the way I see it life, and basically, I feel privileged to have spent the last 20, 30 years of my life, the people that the mentors that I have had, the different extremes of people and cultures, social economic levels, whatnot, that I've been able to download from. And I thought it would be especially prevalent to this kind of situation, where I started writing a book about wisdom to my kids, how their father got to this point, that I would also start communicating with people, and I would act as a conduit to that wisdom, right? So the idea is to find thought leaders in different communities, and just overall people that think on higher levels, that I could tap myself into and share the experiences. It's not just keep it to myself. And how I found success. How I found success was I was influenced by you. I was influenced by everybody. Influence in this journey. So it's that process of evolution that I wanted to grab these nuggets from people and share them, and that's what I'm in the process of developing right now.
Well, that's awesome. And for me, success, it was so funny because everybody has maybe different definition of it. And I remember when I was working at a company, at a matchmaking service, and I was working. It was a 9-hour day, and then the half an hour drive back each way, and all of that. And it was exhausting, and a lot of great things about it. But I longed to be my own boss. And I remember sitting with a friend of mine, Lynn, and we were sitting down by the pool in our apartment building. And she had retired because she was smart with her money, very young, and she was able to retire like at 40 or something. And she invested her money, and so she could do, yeah, she didn't have the money I did to maybe go to Paris, or I had more money to play with. But then again, she could do what she wanted when she wanted. She called all the shots, and I said, you know what? I said, I consider you more successful than me, because you can make your own schedule. You don't have anyone calling the shots. And it was a very interesting conversation. So,
Yeah.
I think it's just we have a friend who has a huge house and like a $70,000 sound system, and then this and that. And he said, and he lives alone, and he's older, and he goes, you know, when you've got all this money, you get all this stuff, 2 places. He says, but then it broke down. It doesn't even work. I spent 70,000. Then I got to get someone in to fix it. I don't know how to. You are a slave to all these gadgets and things and places.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
You ever see the movie Fight Club? Right. It's don't let the things you own
Own
you.
you. Yeah,
You know,
don't let things own you. And I just think about it because I'm here in Los Angeles and it's kind of la la land and matching up, you know, wealthy guys with girls who'd love a wealthy guy and they see all the stuff that they want. I want this new car and this big house and this and that and that. But really, I think it can weigh you down. Do you really want it? You know, why what is it in you that's maybe missing that you're trying to fill with these things? Because I think freedom to go and travel and see and do and call your own shots, I think for me is what it's all about. I mean, that's what, you know.
Yeah, I fully 100% agree with you. Ultimately, with me, it came down to the amount of work that I had put in the last 25 years to find that success, and then finally getting to that point that said, well, these things are not really what is important, is downloading me to my kids. That's really what's important. So ultimately, I feel more alive by giving myself the freedom to do exactly what it is that I want to do when I want to do it. And it's not about the money.
Right.
The money comes when you transcend happiness. When you shine, that's when it comes. Right? So my journey, at least is the way that I'm looking at it for the next half of my life, is to find people like this and to share that. So my legacy is that, to share this information, to share these feelings, to basically enlighten folks, to basically maybe think differently. Maybe I could be a better father, I could be a better boss, I could be a better employee, I could be a better whatever that may be, just by seeing this one family thinking, okay, well, they ditched mainstream and they're doing it successfully. How can I maybe rethink the way that I do? And it doesn't have to be such an extreme that you get in an Airstream and go around the world, but it may be something in there is inspirational for you that makes you act differently.
Oh, I think that means money. What's the significance of when you sneeze? Something good's going to happen.
I'm all about it.
Victor, thank you so much for stopping by, and good luck with your trips. And we're going to keep abreast of your travels. And you guys, if you want to do something or did something similar, make some, leave your comment below. Let us know. And all of Victor's links are there. So follow him, watch the podcast, and happy trails.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.